my topic is all about work of river, wind and sea, and the engineering importance. So, geological work by rivers. During the life while flowing from head to mouth, the rivers are capable of exerting greatly modifying influence over the topography of the region through which they flow. The geological work by river may be broadly divided into three well-defined phases: the erosion, transportation, and deposition. So first is erosion. By erosion is meant disintegration and decomposition of rocks and soil material by a natural agent through mechanical and chemical processes accompanied by removal of the disintegrated or decomposed product to far-off places by the same agent. So this happens when the water carves and shapes the landscape through which they flow. So, mahitabo ang erosion pagka ang water is naga-carve or naga-shape siya sa iyahang kung asa siya mag-flow. So, natay mga features of stream erosions, which is river valleys, waterfalls, potholes, gorges and canyons, and stream terraces. So, ang iba, wala lang siya naan sa diri sa PowerPoint. So, river valleys. A valley may be defined as a lowland surrounded on sides by inclined hills, slopes, and mountains. So, as you can see sa picture, na naadiri sa PowerPoint is mo na siya ang river valleys. Next is the waterfalls. So, kabalo man sila taon sa waterfalls, no? So, di na explain. Next is the transportation. So, transportation materials that has been loosened by erosion may be then transported along the river. So, there are four ways of transportation: the traction, saltation, suspension, and solution. So, first is the traction. So, larger and heavier rocks are dragged or rolled along the riverbed. So, mo ni siya kanang pag ang mga bugat o mga dagko ng mga rocks is kanang magsabay gud siya sa flow sa rivers or sa tubig. So next is the saltation. Kung sa traction is larger o heavier katong mga bugat o mga dagko, saltation is smaller and lighter. So mo na siya ang mga gagmay o mga gaan na mga rock na magsabay siya sa or mag-bounce sa riverbed. So next is the suspension. So, some of the load like silt and clay will float along. So, kung sa traction at saltation is mag-roll or mag-drag sila sa riverbed, ang sa suspension is mag-float along sa river. So, nag-float sila. So, next is the solution. Some minerals are transported in dissolved form, especially chemical solution from minerals like limestone. So, this solution is nagasabay na siya sa water katong mga na-dissolve na mga chemicals gikan sa mga rocks or sa mga minerals na naa dito sa river. So, mga siya ang solution. So, wala ni siya sa na-appear sa PowerPoint. So, next is the deposition. So, deposition happens when a river loses energy. So, paano mawalaan ng energy ang river? So, a river can lose its energy when rainfall reduces, kung magamay-gamay ang rainfall or ang pag-ulan, or evaporation increases, and when a river meets the sea. So, pag meet na sa river ang sea is mag-calm na siya. So, dire na mahitabo ang deposition. So, gets man siguro ko na. So next is the work of wind. So same sa work of river, ang work of wind napod siya erosion, transportation, and deposition. So let's talk about the wind erosion. So wind erosion is a natural process that moves soil from one location to another by wind power. So ang wind erosion is napod siya three different methods, which is the deflation, abrasion, and the attrition. So, ang deflation is muna siya ang process of removal of particle of dust and sand by strong wind. So, 3 is kanang process and removal sa mga dust and sands lang. So next is the abrasion. This type of erosion involving rubbing, grinding, polishing the rock surface by any natural agent. So next is attrition. The sand particles and other particles lifted by the wind from different places are carried away to considerable distances. Next is the wind transportation. So wind transportation kay na siya'y dalawa ka processes, which is the suspension and the siltation. So, suspension is light density clay and silt particles may be lifted by the wind from the ground and are carried high up to the upper layer of the wind where they move along with the wind. So, sa suspension is katong mga light density clay or mga light particles is makaya siya lift sa wind from the ground for the long period of time. So next is the siltation. The heavier sediments such as grains, pebbles, and gravels are lifted up vertically during high velocity wind only for short distance. They may be dropped and pick up again and again during the transportation process. So dili siya same sa suspension na katong mga light density clay or silt particles or mga light particles is kanang makaya siya ma-lift sa wind kanang for the long period of time kanang dili ko siya magbaba-baba kay ang sa siltation is bugat man siya, so madala siya sa hangin kadali lang, so magbaba na pod, then makaya na pod siya og kanang lift, then magbaba na pod, so ulit-ulit agad ang process. So na siya. Next is the deposition. All the sediments picked up by the wind eventually falls back to the ground. So, katong mga sediments or mga particles nga na-lift sa wind or nadala sa wind is magbaba, mo na siya ang deposition. Next is the wind transportation. So, wind transportation kay na siya'y dalawa ka processes, which is the suspension and the siltation. So, suspension is light density clay and silt particles may be lifted by the wind from the ground and are carried high up to the upper layer of the wind where they move along with the wind. So, sa suspension is katong mga light density clay or mga light particles is makaya siya lift sa wind from the ground for the long period of time. So next is the siltation. The heavier sediments such as grains, pebbles, and gravels are lifted up vertically during high velocity wind only for short distance. They may be dropped and pick up again and again during the transportation process. So dili siya same sa suspension na katong mga light density clay or silt particles or mga light particles is kanang makaya siya ma-lift sa wind kanang for the long period of time kanang dili ko siya magbaba-baba kay ang sa siltation is bugat man siya, so madala siya sa hangin kadali lang, so magbaba na pod, then makaya na pod siya og kanang lift, then magbaba na pod, so ulit-ulit agad ang process. So na siya. Next is the deposition. All the sediments picked up by the wind eventually falls back to the ground. So, katong mga sediments or mga particles nga na-lift sa wind or nadala sa wind is magbaba, mo na siya ang deposition. So, lastly is the work of oceans or work of sea. So, let's talk about the marine erosion. Sa marine erosion, so diri mahitabo ang pag-disjoint blocks sa mga rocks from their original places tungod sa impact sa sea waves and current. Diba sa iban man ng mga dagat is na ay mga rocks, mga dagko na rocks. So, dira ang may tabo ang marine erosion pagka nang ang impact gid sa sea waves is kanang maka-apekto dito sa rocks, halimbawa sa limestone kanang pag maano siya tubig is mag dissolve or kahinahinay siya kanang katanggal tong iba ng mga parts sa rocks. So, ang iba is kanang matunga, ang iba is kanang mahilis. So, muna siya ang marine erosion. So, wala na ako ang topic, no? And I hope na mo nasabtan. Thank you.